It's 50 years since the Beatles played for the first time at the Liverpool club that will always be connected with their name, the Cavern. But as well as hundreds of sweaty afternoons and nights there, the Beatles had another home from home, Hamburg. And playing long sessions in the exotic nightclubs there also formed a big part of their apprenticeship.
When we came back to Liverpool, and instead of playing 6-7 hours a night, all we had to do was compress it and play an hour. You've got all that energy pent up and it just exploded. And of course the kids had never seen anything like that before.
Returning to the Cavern in summer 1961, after a 3-month Hamburg stint, the Beatles were a battle-hardened unit, with a sharp new image to boot.
They came back in black leather.
They had leather bomber jackets, black turtleneck sweater. Black leather pants and pointed Italian shoes.
The new look was modelled on one of the Beatles' rock and roll heroes.
We wanted to be like Gene Vincent, you know, we wanted to be rockers. What became stuff that we'd wear for knocking around became our stage gear, basically. We lived in it. We wore it on stage, we wore it off stage. So leathers became a trademark with us.
Hard on the heels of the leather look came a new mop-top hairstyle, for the front three anyway, soon to be adopted the world over. The Cavernites were unsure about it at first.
Nobody wore their hair forward apart from, you know, unfortunate kids at school who got their hair cut by their dads using a pudding basin. And there was a kid on our estate, and he, very early on, after seeing the Beatles, combed his hair forward. He got beaten up on our estate. I mean, it was that, you know, it was that odd a thing to do.
But the biggest breakthrough for the Beatles was that in Hamburg they had cut their first record. They had provided backing on the rocked-up version of a kid's favourite, sung by Tony Sheridan, an expat Brit, big in Germany. And this was to have a seismic effect on the Beatles' career back home. Enter Brian Epstein, owner of Liverpool's foremost record shop at the time, Nems.
Brian always said he could get a record anywhere in the world. It might take a long time. And we kept getting asked for this record by the Beatles. We got it, we sold boxes and boxes and boxes of it. One day Brian came into Nems and he said, "Alistair, do you remember that band that we sold all those records for, the Beatles?" So I said yes. He said, "Well, they're playing at the Cavern Club."
One Thursday lunchtime in November 1961, 9 months after the Beatles' Cavern debut, Epstein and Taylor made the 2-minute walk from the record shop to see them play.
I remember the day Brian Epstein came down to the Cavern. We were here then, it was a lunchtime, and Bob Woolard announced over the microphone, "Please welcome Mr. Epstein from Nems."
Sweet little 16, she got the grown-up blues.
And I remember actually thinking how old Brian looked at the time, you know, because we were so young ourselves. And I mean, I think he was 27 or something when he came down here.
She'll have to change the train.
Quite very posh, dressed very well, immaculately dressed, and just a businessman.
He was awfully posh, but sort of had never been with the plebs like us. And he came down after all these strange children down there dancing and smoking. But he loved the raunchiness in it, the aggression.
All the cats wanna dance with sweet little 16.
At the end, Paul announced that they'd like to close with a number that he and John had written. It's called Hello Little Girl.
Hello, little girl. Hello, little girl.
And I thought, if they can write songs as good as that, you know, and I thought no more. That was just casual thought in my own head.
Hello, little girl.
We just put our head round the door, Brian did, and just all he said was, you know, "This is my assistant, Alistair." And they just, I think they said, "You know, what brings you here?" And we just said, "Thought you were very good. Bye." It was as quick and as simple as that. Then we went to Peacock's, for lunch. Brian says, "You know, what do you think of them?" And I said, "I think they're absolutely diabolical, but magic, absolutely fabulous." Out of the blue, he just said, think I could manage them.
The answer was a resounding yes. And from early 1962, with an ambitious new manager at the helm, life for the Beatles started to change in more ways than one.
He started doing what we call nice bookings. And he said, well, this leather gear has got to go.
So rock and roll leather was out, and showbiz suits were in.
When you look back, they were nice suits. They weren't the glitzy gold lamy things that, people were wearing. They were dark blue, mohair, nice cut on them, white shirts, black tie. So, yeah, we looked dapper.
Under Epstein's management, record labels were being courted, although without much success at first. And more shows outside Liverpool meant the rest of Britain started to discover what all the fuss was about. But a more controversial change was also coming, one that took the regulars at the Cavern by surprise.
We got called to Brian Epstein's office one day. As we got up there, we opened, Pete Best came out the lift and pushed us out the way. And we went, hello, how you doing? And he just wouldn't speak to us.
Looked right through us.
Pushed us out the way and walked past. And then the secretary came out and said, Brian's can't see you now.
Awful sorry, he'll explain later.
Yeah, he'll explain later. And apparently he was so upset about the whole thing.
He just sacked Pete.
He just sacked Pete Best.
Just a bombshell being dropped on me, basically. No forewarning. Calling into, Eppie's office. He wasn't a normal, cool, calm, placid Brian. Because I'd had meetings with Brian before. I'd handled the business side of things, and I just thought, okay, it's another brain-picking session. Here we go. What's it like playing for this promoter? Should we put the price up? The usual stuff. We walked in, happy as Larry. Brian was a little bit apprehensive and talked around the subject for a while, and then he just said, Pete, I've got bad news for you. Don't really know how to turn around and tell you. The boys want you out, and it's already been arranged that Ringo would join the band on Saturday. And that was the bombshell.
After 2 years and more than 1,000 shows in Hamburg and Liverpool, Pete Best was out, and Ringo Starr from Rory Storm and the Hurricanes was in.
And I accepted it, and it was only really when I got back home again that the reality of the situation hit me. Good God, I'm no longer with the band.
As to the reason why, there are many well-worn theories, from jealousy of Pete's female following, to his not adopting the Beatles' haircut, to his quietness on stage.
There's that many conspiracy theories over it. I stopped worrying about it many, many years ago, Life goes on. If you keep looking back over your shoulder all the time, then you will end up bitter and twisted, but there's more to life than that, Yeah, it happened, but take it on the chin and get on with your life.
Pete had gone, but the Beatles' juggernaut powered on, with TV companies starting to pick up on the buzz from the Cavern. So as it happened, Ringo's first lunchtime session as a member of the Beatles in August 1962 was filmed by an ITV crew. It's the only footage of the Beatles at the Cavern and captures irate Pete Best fans, furious that some other guy was occupying the drum stool.
Mixed emotions, obviously, because everyone loved Pete. People were booing and stuff like that.
Audience were chanting, Pete Best forever, Ringo never.
For a brief period in summer 1962, the former Cavern idols found themselves the villains of the piece in the eyes of the devotees of their former drummer.
George came in with a big black eye. And what's happened to you? He said, oh, someone's annoyed that we've sacked Pete, so they give me a punch.
I don't know whether he was any better or worse than Ringo, to be honest, but personality-wise, Ringo fitted a lot better, I think.
Because the other three were quite extrovert, and Pete wasn't. And Ringo was the clown as well, and he did fit in with the Beatles image.
With Ringo, he's so cute. He just grew on people, so then he was accepted.
Once Ringo had won over the doubters, the classic Beatles lineup was in place. But gone for good were the days of the Beatles as a kind of Cavern house band, playing 3 lunchtime sessions a week. As 1962 drew to an end, TV bookings were on the increase, and most crucially, a record contract had been secured with the MI.
Love, love me do.
The Beatles were taking off.
You know I love you.
Cause for celebration at the Cavern? Well, not exactly.
So please, love me do.
If any band was going to make it, I thought it would be the Beatles. But when it happened, it was like, hang on, they're going.
Love, love me do. You know I love you.
It felt to me that they would just stay in Liverpool. I mean, nobody got a record contract in those days. You had to go to London and sing songs written by Lionel Barnes or something like that, you know, to get a record contract. So I thought the Beatles were going to be here forever.
I was aware of a reluctance of the girls to buy Love Me Do because they didn't want the Beatles to leave Liverpool.
Hang on, we buy this, or if they get famous, they'll leave the Cavern, and what we do then?
Love me do. You know I love you.
But I couldn't resist. I worked over the record shop as well, so I couldn't resist, could I? I've got a very nice signed copy of that still today.
Love me do.
A lot of people were disappointed, yeah, because London had their own people, you know, like Cliff Richard and Marty Wilde. And that's all we had in Liverpool, really, the Beatles. So when there was talk about them going, you know, I just unhooked myself and went and done something else.
Some of the fans have been saying that, you know, they feel that you've deserted them. What do you feel about that?
Mainly the ones that never came to... The people that are moaning about us not being here are people that never even came to see us when we were here. You know, we could count on our fingers the original fans we had here, the ones that really followed us.
Without the Beatles, the fans would find themselves protesting to keep the band's spiritual home alive.
So we got all the chairs, and like there was, we say the entrance there, and we just filled it with chairs.
But would it all be in vain?
Isn't that typical, to knock something iconic down?